So, you're here. Why do you want to build peace? For many of you, it may be because you empathize with people in war zones and you want to do something about it. When you have those kinds of thoughts, you're engaging your brain's empathy circuit. Now, the problem is that people don't always engage their empathy circuit, and that's when we get in trouble. So Joshua Green, who's just a few blocks from here at Harvard, ran a study to understand when it gets triggered and when it doesn't. So he presented people with the runaway trolley dilemma. But he used neuro-imaging, which is something new. So in the runaway trolley dilemma, you hear that there's a runaway trolley and it's going to kill 5 people. And under one scenario, participants in the study are told, well, you can flip a switch and it will go on a different set of tracks, and then only one person is going to get killed. Most people say, well, I'll flip the switch. And when they make this decision, they're using the part of their brain that's used for utilitarian values. 5 is more than 1. Now, then they're given a different scenario that says, this time you have to actually push somebody on. They engage their empathy circuit. Now, if you think of soldiers at war, they have these kinds of dilemmas all the time. There was a flawed but very influential study during World War II that found that a majority of US troops in the front lines were not shooting at the enemy during any given action. And this brought about some significant changes in training for the militaries throughout the world, where now they're taught to, if they identify an enemy, to shoot up instinctively as opposed to actually thinking about it. Now, while this has increased firing rates in the military significantly, it has also led to much higher rates of mental illness among veterans. So it's up to about 40% for veterans of the Iraq War in the US. Other ways in which the empathy circuit is circumvented during war is by increasing physical distance to those getting killed. So if you can't see, if the person holding the weapon can't see those getting killed, it's a lot easier to do that. So we can see this with bombings or missiles. And the newer way in which you see it is with drones, too. Although with those higher resolution cameras, we're starting to see more cases of mental illness even among drone pilots. Other ways in which empathy gets circumvented during war is through war propaganda. So putting out your enemies as people who are evil or inferior in some way. This is how Americans are portrayed in North Korea, for example. And this doesn't only happen in those places, but we can also see it sometimes in Western media as well, where compatriots and allies tend to be portrayed as victims, and enemies tend to be portrayed as fanatics or savages of some kind. Now, the good news is that people all over the world are starting to get this kind of devices, and they're getting information in different ways. They're communicating through these devices. They're contacting other people and making decisions through these devices. And this can shorten the social and physical distances to our enemies. And it's an unprecedented opportunity that we have. One way to shorten physical distance is to make us all witnesses to violence that happens throughout the world. If we witness violence, we can do something about it, and we can shame those who do the violence. And you can see this might have had a bit of an effect in different countries during the Arab Spring. The places that had wider internet access, where images of violence could be shared more easily, ended up having less violence overall. Other ways to shorten social distances can occur through storytelling. So when folks from Georgia Tech put together a kiosk for storytelling and took it to Liberia, they thought that people were going to tell stories about the war. Instead, they told stories about the future that they wanted for their country. And it helped them get along better with each other and really think about their commonality. With social media, it's another opportunity, unprecedented, of making connections with people from other groups, from other countries. You're probably going to meet someone today who's from another country, a country you've never seen anyone from before, and you can continue that friendship over the years. Other things that are possible, you can break the monolithic stereotypical views of people from other countries by forming groups that say, you know what, we don't agree with what our government says, and there's diversity of views in our country. Other ways to shorten social distances, accessing media from other places. An example, the International Children's Digital Library with hundreds of books freely available online from all over the world in dozens of languages. You can find out children's stories from other places. You can even shorten social distances when people are face-to-face. So there's more and more work in my field of human-computer interaction on bringing people to the negotiating table, where the table is actually an interactive table, where you can tell stories and find common narratives. So I invite you to learn more about this and the work that we're doing in the human-computer interaction field by visiting hciforpeace.org. We have an academic community that's working on these problems. Thank you.